As Britain commemorates the 75th anniversary of VE Day on the 8th of May, one of the most interesting stories that has been immortalised in film is the Queen's famous night out in London to celebrate. Now, a night out in the UK usually ends up with a group of friends frequenting the local Wetherspoons, which, if you're not from Britain, it's a staple of British culture, offering cheap food and alcohol, and we absolutely love it. However, what is the story behind the Queen's big night out? As we're sure she probably wasn't doing a Jaeger bomb, sipping 2 cocktail pitchers for £12 and falling in a taxi at 3 AM after being sick. Today, we look at the story of the Queen's big night out on VE Day. Remember to support the channel, please make sure to subscribe. During the Second World War, the then Princess Elizabeth had been working as a mechanic and a driver in the Auxiliary Territorial Service, contributing to the British war effort. VE Day stands for Victory in Europe Day and took place on Tuesday the 8th of May 1945. Its role in history is a day in which Britain celebrated victory against Nazi Germany after they offered their unconditional surrender to the Allies. Across the country, mass celebrations would take place to mark the occasion, and for Brits, it was the light at the end of a tunnel, as years before, it seemed that this day would never come with the Blitz and events such as the withdrawal at Dunkirk. For the royal family, they were seen as a figure of defiance throughout the war, with King George VI playing a key role in maintaining morale in the UK. On VE Day, it was the King who would address the nation with a rousing speech, celebrating the victory and sharing the feeling and sentiment with the nation. Surprisingly, the King allowed his daughters, Princess Elizabeth, our now Queen Elizabeth II, and Princess Margaret to join the party, which was occurring in London. The two girls would plead with their father and mother to let them go, and a 16-strong group of trusted members of the royal household was assembled to accompany the girls. In this was Margaret Rhodes, the Queen's cousin, Lord Porchester, and Peter Townsend, an RAF hero who later fell in love with Princess Margaret. The royal party slipped out of Buckingham Palace at around 9 PM. Princess Elizabeth was wearing her uniform of the Auxiliary Territorials, and Margaret was wearing civilian clothing. From here, they crossed the forecourt of the palace and got to the railings where there were masses of people gathered. They were chanting, "We want the King and Queen," desperate for a glimpse of their victorious monarchy. And funnily enough, the Queen and her entourage joined in. Eventually, after 5 or 10 minutes, the fever-pitched crowd got their wish, with the royals coming out onto the balcony. It must have felt strange for the two princesses to be on the other side of the railings, as they'd never really been out before. They were terrified of being recognised in the crowds, but managed to pass through undetected. After seeing their mum and dad on the balcony of the palace, the party then headed up the mall, with the crowd who were singing and shouting. The Queen said in 1985, "I remember lines of unknown people linking arms and walking down Whitehall, all of us just swept along on a tide of happiness and relief." Some of the party would then jump in an open-top car owned by the Duke of Norfolk for a short while. They rushed into the centre of London, and amongst the crowd was a man blowing his trumpet on the back of a lorry. From here, they joined in with the crowd doing the conga around Piccadilly Circus and Trafalgar Square. Imagine that, the Queen doing the conga around London with tens of thousands of civilians. Margaret Rhodes, the Queen's cousin, would say that Trafalgar Square was jammed from end to end. It was a scene of joyful whoopee, full of people kissing policemen and other people. It was complete mayhem, but rather nice mayhem. The princesses, however, would have some decorum, and at around 11:30 PM would head to the world-famous Ritz Hotel. Rhodes says, "For some reason we decided to go into the front door of the Ritz and do the conga. The Ritz had always been so stuffy and formal. We rather electrified the stuffy individuals inside. I think they thought it was just a group of drunk people. I remember old ladies looking faintly shocked as one congaed through, eyebrows were raised." Before midnight, the royal party would approach Green Park before making their way back to the palace. The royals were not allowed to walk in Green Park or St James's Park during the night, and for them, it must have felt like great freedom following the war. People were still on the streets and celebrating. Allegedly, there were a number of people having rather too much fun in the park. However, at midnight, the princesses were back inside Buckingham Palace to see the King and Queen appear on the balcony for a second time. The next morning it was back to life as usual for the young princesses. However, the impact of their night out in London had a profound effect. The Queen would later say that it was one of the most memorable nights of her life. So there you have it, The story of Queen Elizabeth II and her sister Princess Margaret celebrating like the masses on one of the greatest days in British history. Thanks for watching. To support the channel, please make sure to subscribe. Once again, thanks for watching.